Rafael is quickly intensifying in the Northern Caribbean, approaching Cuba later on in the next 24 to 48 hours, and expected to intensify to at least a Category 1 hurricane, if not making a run for a Category 2 hurricane. This is the latest imagery. It is very well organized, starting to get a better low-level center of circulation. Cloud tops are more robust, and this thing is going to continue to do so as it makes its marks towards Cuba. And as it does so, it's going to continue to intensify. Most models are in agreement with at least a Category 1 hurricane, a couple reaching Category 2 status sometime around early Wednesday to late Wednesday, which is expected to make landfall in Cuba. From there, it is expected to enter the Gulf of Mexico. The good news about this situation is that it's expected to be on a weakening trend once it does enter the Gulf of Mexico. And this is due to a couple key factors. The fact that the water temperatures are already very cooled off from the previous hurricanes we've had, and there's going to be a lot of dry air and shear present along the coast as it approaches the United States. Most model track guidance has this coming towards Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or potentially the western part of the panhandle of Florida. Most are in agreements now that it's going to make landfall somewhere in there. Obviously, the closer we get to time of it making landfall, the more these models are going to narrow down an exact location. But this is not something that I would necessarily write home about. This is not necessarily something that I would start evacuation plans. This is most likely going to make landfall as a low or mid-grade tropical storm, potentially high-grade tropical storm with max sustained winds from 50 to 60 miles an hour, gusting to potentially 75 miles an hour. Now, taking a look at the latest GEFS ensemble members, beginning with today, November the 5th. It has it right around the Jamaica, approaching the Jamaica area, and then it continues to impact Cuba, like I said, late Wednesday, early Thursday, and entering the Gulf of Mexico. Some take this very close to the western part of Florida. Y'all most likely will feel some impacts in the form of potentially some gusty winds, some rain, and potentially some tornadoes as well, as we get that center of circulation becoming more well organized. And by the time we get to really Sunday, November the 10th, everything kind of becomes more spread out on the ensemble members. There's still a little bit of uncertainty if it could potentially track a little more west, so that's going to be a trend that we'll have to watch for. Regardless, even if it did come to Texas, like I said, it's going to be the same outcome. We'll potentially see some storm surge, some tornadoes, and potentially some gusty winds, but it's not going to be a major hurricane by any means. Another thing that we're going to have to watch out for getting into the middle of November, a lot of models are starting to hint at another potential system. We're not going to go into detail because this is still very far out and there's still a lot of uncertainty with this tracks, but as of right now, it does show a potential system trying to get going down here in the Southern Caribbean yet again around November the 14th to November the 17th, potentially getting blocked and then being pushed down to the Atlantic Ocean. So those are trends that we're going to have to monitor. The latest Canadian model is in agreement with the latest models and the latest track guidance, potentially putting this into the Gulf of Mexico as a weak tropical storm that has a lot weaker and making landfall in Florida as really not even barely a depression. And then we've got another secondary potential low pressure system trying to form just north of the DR in Cuba. And we take this in time, it tries to form another low pressure system around that time frame down here later on in the Caribbean. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the icon model shows. The icon model has been a little more reserved. It's always reserved the strength and the intensity of these type of tropical systems. This one thinks it's going to make landfall in Cuba as a weak tropical storm. I think it'll be a little bit stronger than that. Enters the Gulf of Mexico, takes more of a westward track, sits there for days and just kind of fizzles out. I think that's more so unlikely. I think it's definitely going to make landfall. I don't think it's going to just stop and fizzle out. So at this point, I'd probably be calling the icon a little more of an outlier, but definitely a possibility. Taking a look at the GFS model, wind shear map, 850 millibar, and you can see making landfall around Wednesday, late Wednesday in Cuba, 977 millibar. Category 1 hurricane at this point, high in Category 1. Getting in the Gulf of Mexico, and you'll notice this number starts to rise, 981, 992, and then over 1,005 millibars. And you can see this wind shear just shredding this storm apart as it gets closer to the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see down here, November the 14th, we start getting a very strong system. Like I said, this is still far out, all the way down to a 917. That would not be good, especially for Jamaica. So that's going to something we're going to continue to monitor and see if the trends continue to develop. Jumping over the latest relative humidity, this is going to show us the dry air and moisture gradients in the atmosphere. So the brown is obviously going to be your dry air. The green is going to be moisture. All right. Tropical systems don't like dry air. They get choked choked off. This will absolutely destroy any type of tropical systems or low pressure systems. And you can see as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, lots of dry air tries to get wrapped in that system right before the storm makes landfall and just absolutely shreds it apart. So regardless of what happens at the end of the guys, to summarize this video up, I think that somewhere in the United States, potentially from extreme eastern Texas all the way to extreme western parts of the Florida Panhandle, could see a potential landfall of a weak to mid-grade tropical storm with winds, maxing winds of about 50 to 60 miles an hour, gusting about 75 miles an hour. Obviously, things will change. We'll continue to keep you up to date, guys. If y'all like the video, like it. Any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely comment down below. I appreciate y'all's support. Our goal is to reach 1,000 subs by the end of this year. We're closing in. We're getting close, so I appreciate it, guys. Smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and I'll see y'all in the next video.